Washington Post has a really good recap on this. A wild Super Tuesday boosts Biden and brings new challenges for Sanders. A wild Super Tuesday boosts Biden and brings new challenges for Bernie Sanders. Okay. And those other articles I can't find right now. So, MSN.com. Black and Latino voters were hit hardest by long lines in the Texas Democratic primary. Black and Latino voters were hit hardest by long lines in the Texas Democratic primary. That's from MSN.com. Okay, check that out. Go watch the broadcast I did March 4th, and I go deep into that. All right, so I want to jump into this discussion here. TheRoot.com, Michael Harriot for TheRoot.com had a very, very good article from, well, they don't put the dates on this thing. I don't know why, but whatever. This is from February 2020 sometime. February 28th, 2020. They have the date on here now. Maybe they heard me. Every Democratic candidate's black agenda ranked. Every Democratic candidate's black agenda ranked. Now, I see a whole lot of discussions on Facebook. We have 1 million followers on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network. I've got close to 5,000 on my personal page, Michael Imhotep. I see a whole lot of discussions from my Facebook friends and people commenting on my posts and things like this. 99% of the time, nobody is citing this study from TheRoot.com. They're dealing with feelings and emotions, what have you, whatever, okay? So with this one here, what they did was they looked at the policies of the candidates. Now, this was before all these people, a lot of these people dropped out. But they asked policy experts, legal scholars, and political pundits, all of whom were African American, to help them, TheRoot.com, devise a policy matrix, Then they graded each plan from the candidates on a scale of 1 to 10 using the following criteria: economics, criminal justice, education, politics, comprehensiveness, as in how detailed is the plan, does it contain specific policy proposals. Number 6 is blind spots. Are there important areas that are not addressed? Number 7, feasibility. Now, feasibility is very important, because a lot of this stuff you got to get passed through Congress, especially the U.S. Senate. You probably need 60 votes in the Senate, which means even if Democrats take back control of the U.S. Senate, maybe it's a 52, 53 seat majority in the Senate for Democrats. You still gonna need 7 or 8 Republicans to vote for these policies, and that's just the bottom line. And that's the difference between, because I hear a whole lot of people talking, right? That's the difference between a lot of things millennials and younger people say. Generation Z, below millennials, younger than millennials. A lot of them don't focus on Congress. Congress is a co-equal branch of government. Read Article 1 of the U.S. Constitution. Go to loc.gov and read the U.S. Constitution. Go to archives.gov, read the U.S. Constitution. There's a reason why Article 1 comes before Article 2. Article 2 deals with the powers of Congress. Most of these things that the candidates want to do, they have to go through Congress for this before it gets to their desk to be signed in the law. And while we're on it, it's the same thing with reparations. This is why I understand some of the conversations about reparations. Moscow Mitch McConnell, Senate Majority Leader, Republican from Kentucky, already said reparations is dead on arrival in the U.S. Senate. No bill can come to the Senate floor for debate or for a vote without his approval. He already said it's dead on arrival. So I'm like, why are y'all focusing so much on the presidential candidates as opposed to focus on getting Mitch McConnell out of office and Democrats taking control of the Senate? Because you can't get these bills passed. It has to go through Congress first before a president signs it into law. There's a reason why Article 1 is before Article 2. So they deal with feasibility. What are the chances of the policies being enacted by legislation, executive action, or internal policy? Does the candidate have the political skill to make their plan come true? Number 8, history. What is the candidate's history of dealing with black people? Has the candidate displayed a willingness to address issues of race and inequality? Number 9, intentionality. Do we believe them, or do they need more people? Do we believe them, or do they need more people? Can we objectively believe the candidate will work for Black America, is he or she pandering, or do they really have the will to make this a priority? Number 10, impact. If implemented, what impact would these policies have? How would the plan affect the problems it attempts to address? How would the plan affect the problems it attempts to address? Now, this is the first time I've seen an analysis like this. This is the first time I've seen an analysis, especially from a publication that ain't African American owned, the roots owned by Hispanic, but still, this is good. I encourage everybody to read this. Okay? If the candidate, so this is what they did. If the candidate's campaign literature does not include a specific quote-unquote black plan or black agenda, they examined their individual policy proposals to see what effect their plan would have on Black America or African Americans. Okay? Because as I've said before, and I've said this in my previous broadcast, the policies that candidates will implement, the policies presidents will implement, and the bills that pass through Congress are going to benefit African Americans positively or negatively, regardless of whether the policies say Black or African American. They're going to have an impact on you. Okay? So they start with Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard got a 0. Now, all these people that dropped out of the race, I ain't going to spend time on them. Okay? Going through their policies. Number 7, Amy Klobuchar got 22. We'll talk some about Senator Elizabeth Warren if we have time, because she got the highest score. She had the most detailed agenda for African Americans. Okay? Senator Elizabeth Warren. Amy Klobuchar got a 22. This is 22 out of 100, by the way, just so people understand. Tulsi Gabbard got 0 out of 100. Okay? Michael Bloomberg got a 43 out of 100. He had his Greenwood Initiative. So economics, Michael Bloomberg's plan gives broad strokes on how he plans to fix the wage gap. He wants to create new homeowners, end unfair lending practices, and task credit agencies with restructuring credit reporting. He also wants to invest in creating $100,000 more. He also wants to invest in creating 100,000 more black entrepreneurs, black entrepreneurs. He supports a commission to look into reparations, okay, which would be H.R. 40 in general. Okay, that's in the House of Representatives, H.R. 40. Go to congress.gov and research H.R. 40, January 2019. Sponsored by Sheila Jackson Lee out of Texas. Okay, so they go through criminal justice, education, all that stuff. Michael Bloomberg, he got a 43 out of 100. All right, next is Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders got a 50 out of 100. Now, it says Bernie Sanders' plan for racial justice is only a small part of his agenda for Black America. So let me say this from the beginning. You've heard me talk about black agendas in the past. A black agenda, one, is what we present to the candidates. That's not what we wait on the candidates to give us, number one. It comes from a sense of self-determination, not passivity, waiting on somebody to give us something. A black agenda is something that we push to the candidates, and it gives us a measuring stick to measure the candidates by. It gives us a barometer to measure the candidates by. And being able to put together a black agenda comes from your understanding of policies, how policies impact African Americans, the African American community, and understanding history, the policies that were put in place and historical events that took place to put us in the predicament that we're in right now. So you have to understand history and understand politics to put together a coherent, a reasonable, a logical black agenda or African American agenda. Okay, and there have been those in the past. We know in August 2013, 60 civil rights organizations presented a 33-page, I think it was about 33 pages, 33-page black agenda to the Obama administration. We know that you have different Black Lives Matter organizations that collectively have sponsored black agendas, etc. Okay, and recently, one of the founders of Black Lives Matter, Roland Martin, interviewed her because they have a black agenda also. Bernie Sanders. Okay, so economics. Bernie Sanders' plan for economic justice is very vague. It lists the most commonly known problem, the wealth gap, redlining, housing discrimination, and vows to fix them. But it does not say how he would do it. Now, this ain't me. This is the analysis. It does not say how he would do it. He seems to rely on his plan for income inequality to answer all questions. He does not, now they say he does not support reparations. Now, when he was here, let me say this specifically. When Bernie Sanders was here in Detroit in, was it June or July, at the NAACP National Convention at Cobo Hall, which is now TCF Craft, right? Whatever it is. Bernie Sanders, I was there in the audience for the Democratic presidential town hall. Okay, April Ryan interviewed all the candidates. Bernie Sanders said he supports H.R. 40. Okay, which is sponsored by Sheila Jackson Lee. Okay, he said specifically, he said in the past he does not support reparations solely in the form of a check. All right, because he said that doesn't bring about the structural changes that need to happen. Well, you've heard me say this before. I don't support reparations 100% being in the form of a check. If we all got $1 million a day, you know damn well black people. If we all got $1 million a day, you know white people will have it all back this time next week. You know that. Okay? Don't act brand new. We can't, year after year, talk about how we spend 97% of our dollars with people that don't look like us, and then all of a sudden we get $500,000, $700,000, $1 million. We think that is going to change. Now, cash payments can be part of an overall package, like the Black Freedmen Indian Treaties of 1866. Go research that. I've talked about that previously. Dr. Claude Anderson has information on the Black Freedmen Indian Treaties of 1866, which is probably our best chance to get any type of concrete reparations, because those are laws still on the books right now, and some of our ancestors got compensation from the Choctaw, Chickasaw, Creek, Cherokee, and Seminole Indians. This is how a lot of the early landowners, African-American landowners, black landowners in Tulsa, Oklahoma, got their land in the first place. Like Sarah Rector, who became known as the richest Afro-American girl in the early 1900s. She got land. She's from enslaved Creek black ancestry, because the Choctaw, Chickasaw, Creek, Cherokee, and Seminole Indians all own African slaves. When they go into Oklahoma, they got pushed off their land in the southeastern United States because of the Indian Removal Act of 1830, signed by President Andrew Jackson. They go into Oklahoma and they take their African slaves with them. And those slaves that they had, they're going to be compensated after the Civil War ends. That's the Black Freedmen Indian Treaties of 1866. That's probably our best chance, since those laws are still in the books now, and we were illegally pushed out of those treaties in 1941. That's probably our best chance to get any real concrete type of compensation, because there's a history of us doing it. So for economics, Bernie Sanders got a 7. Criminal justice, Bernie Sanders' criminal justice displays the same performative rhetoric. His details are not revelatory, and he offers no solutions except to say that he will solve the problem. So for criminal justice, he got a 5 out of 10. Economics, 7 out of 10. Okay, let me know how much time we have left in the show. Fair. Okay, education. Bernie Sanders promises to make college debt free for everyone who attends a 4-year college. He also plans to cancel student debt and give $1.3 billion to HBCUs and minority-serving institutions. Student loan debt is big, okay? And that impacts different generations. It ain't just young people. Because when you go to college, your whole family goes to college. When you go to college, your whole family incurs debt and expenses, etc. Okay, so he also plans to cancel student debt and give $1.3 billion to HBCUs and minority-serving institutions. Aside from child care, his platform has very little, if any, information on reducing disparities in K through 12, kindergarten through 12th grade. Okay, education. So for education, he gets a 4. Now, this is not an attack on Bernie Sanders or Joe Biden. This is analysis of their policies and how they will impact African Americans. For politics, Bernie Sanders wants to get money out of politics, stop gerrymandering, and reform voting, which will undoubtedly benefit African American voters, but his policies are race blind. For politics, he gets a 4. For comprehensiveness, he gets a 5. Bernie Sanders' plan for Black America reads like a first-year sociology student's midterm project. Okay, so this is, I think Michael Harry is saying this, what have you. But for comprehensiveness, he gets a 5. Now, it's important to note, as time goes on, some candidates do flesh out their policies and add more details in general. That is true. As the race goes on, as you get deeper into it, some candidates do flesh out their policies as they meet with more groups, etc. That is true. Blind spots. Bernie Sanders does not have any egregious blind spot in his platform because it consists mostly of listing the problems and saying, I got this, or he'll solve it, what have you. For blind spots, he gets a 5. For feasibility, he gets a 4. As with other platforms, without any specifics, it is hard to say if Bernie Sanders could pass these detail-free policies. They have to pass through both chambers of Congress, the House of Representatives, and the U.S. Senate. For a lot of these, you would need 60 votes in the U.S. Senate, which means you would need some Republicans to vote for them. Okay, it's the same thing for Joe Biden. This is not an attack on any one of them. This is understanding what a lot of people don't want to talk about, getting this stuff passed through Congress so a president can sign the bill into law. Right now, in 2019, Democrats in the House of Representatives passed 433 bills. 80% of them are stuck in the Senate being blocked by Moscow, Mitch McConnell, and Republicans. History. Bernie Sanders voted for the 94 crime bill, but he's not happy about it. He said that many times. He has made some problematic statements about African Americans, but he also has a history of being on the right side of most civil rights issues. He marched with Dr. King, as he says, and he's supported by Jesse Jackson. We saw Jesse Jackson came out and endorsed Bernie Sanders. But he also wanted to primary President Barack Obama. 2012, Bernie Sanders contemplated running against President Barack Obama, primarying him. And then the day after Super Tuesday, on Wednesday, Bernie Sanders comes out with a campaign ad featuring Barack Obama praising Bernie Sanders. And people are looking at it, well, wait a second, you won the primary President Barack Obama in 2012. So for history, he gets a 6. For intentionality, he gets a 3. For impact, he gets a 7. His total score is 50. Okay, Tom Starr got a 62. Pete Buttigieg got a 66. Pete Buttigieg had the Frederick Douglass plan, but Buttigieg dropped out. Now, Joe Biden. Joe Biden gets a total score of 70. Bernie Sanders got a 50. Joe Biden gets a total score of 70. That's not me. That's the analysis. Joe Biden does not have a separate plan that spells out his vision for Black America, but here's what we found by examining his platform. Because I've looked at, a month ago, I looked at all the candidates' platforms. Joe Biden did not have a specific black agenda, but his policies will impact African Americans, a lot of them positively. That's just the facts. You can go read them. Go to BernieSanders.com, read his policies. Go to JoeBiden.com, read his. All the candidates read their policies. Economics. Biden specifically mentions redlining, housing discrimination, fair lending practices. He offers boilerplate solutions on ways to tackle the wage and income gap, but he does single out black maternal health and health disparities. He does not support reparations. Now, I heard a campaign surrogate for the article from Politico when the whole thing broke out with the comment about the segregationists, and these were Democratic senators who were segregationists. A surrogate for him said that he supports H.R. 40, but in debates, when asked about it, he sidesteps the issue about reparations. Now, once again, it's important to note, reparations, that stuff got to pass through Congress, especially the Senate, before it goes to the president's desk to be signed into law. Criminal justice, again, Joe Biden tackles most of the criminal justice issues that are prevalent in America. One of the most unique areas that he confronts is the criminalization of girls, foster children, and abused children. He also puts effort into violence against women and reintegrating the formerly incarcerated. For criminal justice, he gets a 7. For economics, he gets a 7. For education, Joe Biden gets a 6. Biden tackles K-12 funding, HBCU funding, and social inequality. He has one of the few campaigns that tie redlining and zip codes to education inequality. He also focuses on putting black teachers into schools. His idea to offer a path from community colleges to HBCUs is innovative. For education, he gets a 6. For politics, he gets a 5. The Biden campaign doesn't really address voting rights except to say that he plans to use the Department of Justice against violators. He also wants to incentivize states to restore voting rights to felons. Okay, let me know how much time we have. For comprehensiveness, he gets a 9. For blind spots, he gets a 7. For feasibility, Joe Biden gets a 10. Joe Biden has more legislative and executive experience than almost any politician in history, according to this analysis. And he's a 2-term vice president, so you're going to learn a few things. He knows how to compromise and get laws passed. When he touts his accomplishments, we know he's taking credit for a lot of other people's work, but we also know that Joe Biden worked with President Barack Obama, etc., as his vice president. Feasibility, he gets a 10. History, he gets a 5. Okay, history, he gets a 5. Intentionality, he gets an 8. Impact. Biden's policies are progressive but not groundbreaking. He wants to fix the inequalities through conventional means and left-center legislation. However, if enacted, they would make a significant impact. For impact, he gets a 6. So he gets a 70. Bernie Sanders gets a 50. Senator Elizabeth Warren got a 79. Elizabeth Warren's plan was called A Working Agenda for Black America. So read this. We'll post a link here on the thread of our broadcast. This is from TheRoot.com, February 28, 2020. Every Democratic candidate's black agenda ranked. Okay, so follow us on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, and on YouTube. Donate $ The AHN Show through Cash App or PayPal.me/The AHN Show through PayPal. We got to get out of here. Stay tuned for Pastor Mo. Remember, right now is correct. Wrong behavior is not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you next week. Peace.